Hey friends, welcome back to Bible Fun with the Duns. We are going to try to film before Orville finds his squeaky toy.
He just found it.
Too late. Today we read Zechariah chapter 10, and in my Bible at the top it says, this chapter is about the restoration of Israel, the restoration for Judah and Israel. And so that's what the chapter is about. In the beginning it talks about, God is talking about who he is and the kind of God he is and what he does, and he compares himself for them to the false gods. Because if we really think back to prophecy, specifically this book, but what all the prophets are saying is, how are you turning away? How are you breaking covenant with God and worshiping literally something you just made, and you are not worshiping and loving the one true God who has proved himself over and over and over. And it reminds me, I may have told y'all this before, but it was one of those Instagram pictures that I saw one time, and there was a flood in another country, and it was a country where they worshipped idols, and it showed the people carrying their wooden idols, it was like statue kind of things, out, and they were like in knee-deep flood water. They were saving their idols. And I'm like, what? And that was the point. What a picture of what these people are doing. And the Bible tells them, God tells them, like, you cut down a tree and you carved it out of your hand and you named it, and all of a sudden you decided to worship it. Like, it has no power. It's a mess. And so we see this contrast in the beginning, and Pops is gonna pick it up.
Pops?
Preacher Hopes. I forgot your name.
Yeah, it's not Pops. Okay, so here's what I got out of the chapter. Whenever you're reading through this, it gives us a lot of great imagery, and it's all, again, pointing to Jesus. Now, the way Zechariah is doing this, he's kind of unfolding this in a way where some of his promises are coming soon. So, eventually, like, the people were, they had exile, they were going to come back from exile, life was going to go on, and then the Messiah would come, but then his kingdom would come. So now, we got little imagery, little images of this all the way through this chapter. And I'm not sure even Zechariah fully understood it at the time, because we know the people who came after him didn't. Because whenever you read through this chapter, you can see that one of the reasons why the people thought that when the Messiah came, he would not be the suffering servant of Isaiah.
Right.
Like, he's not going to be the Messiah who dies on the cross. They expected the Messiah to be more like what they saw here. What they saw here was where his anger is kindled, and he said, I will make him who comes the cornerstone, and from him the tent peg and the battle bow, and from him every ruler together, and they shall be mighty. And then I will strengthen, and I will save, and I will bring them back, and I will have mercy. And so inside this chapter, you got like 21 different like predictive terms. I will do this. All these things are going to happen. But what they didn't understand was there's a difference between the first time Jesus came, and he would come as the suffering servant, and the next time that Jesus comes, where he will come as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And so he's going to fulfill all of that, but at first he was going to come as the sacrifice who would die for the sins of the world. You can catch the idea here when it talks about Jesus being the cornerstone. He's the foundation, the linchpin that holds everything together. When it talks about him being the tent peg, he's one who holds things down. And then when he's this bow and this sword, he's victorious over his enemies. What are the enemies he came to defeat? Sin, death, hell, the grave, the devil. He's totally victorious in that. But in all of this, we get a good picture of, and I think this is the key here. Jesus is showing us that he is all of these images and not just one of them. So that whenever you read through the story, why is he a cornerstone? And then he's talking about being a shepherd, and then he's a tent peg, and then why? Because no one image can capture all that he is. That's why he's trying to do it all. He's trying to say it all.
A bazillion names.
That's right. And then when you get to the New Testament, when Jesus says things like, I am the good shepherd, that didn't confuse people as to who they thought Jesus was claiming to be. He was claiming to be the Messiah, and they knew it. See, we read that and we go, oh, he's talking about sheep and giving imagery. No. He's connecting back to the Messiah is supposed to be the good shepherd. So here's something else. When we read through chapters like this, it tells us who our Messiah is, who our God is, in contrast to who the world tells us who God is, and it's false gods. Now, let me illustrate it to you like this. So you've got good imagery here, good details about who the Messiah is, what he will do, what he will accomplish, and we see all of that in Jesus. That identifies who Jesus is. So that when we meet people and they think, oh, well, listen, I worship like this, but we're all really just worshiping the same God. I'm going to tell you what. If their version of God doesn't match up with what Scripture says, then they're not talking about the same God. And I can illustrate it like this. When I was growing up, my best friend, his name was Dusty. My name is Dusty. If you're watching first time, my name is Dusty. My best friend's name was Dusty. So we lived in the same small town. We went to the same school. We went to the same church. And we both had the same name. Now, to look on paper, we lived in Keithville, Louisiana. We went to Rose Park Baptist Church. We graduated from Byrd High School in Shreveport, Louisiana. So on paper, if you look through that, there may be someone, well, they go, well, I know Dusty. And then they know these same key facts. But here's the thing. Whereas there are some similarities when you say Dusty between the both, there's some major differences. I am the son of Johnny and Sandy Dunn. My name is Dusty. He was the son of his parents.
And still is.
Yeah, and still is, by the way. And I'm not going to say their name, just, I don't want to embarrass. So, but what I'm saying is, I lived at a certain address. He lived at a different address. So when you're talking to people and they go, oh yeah, I believe in God. Well, okay. Well, then who are you talking about? Because these people were worshiping idols that they believed that they could call to and he could give the rain. The most famous idol of Israel was Baal, who they believed controlled the weather and the rain and the crops. And yet in verse 1 it says, ask the Lord for rain. And in time for the latter rain, the Lord will make the flashing clouds and he will give the showers of rain. So they say, oh, I believe in God. The same God. No. Zechariah said, we're talking about two different gods. You're talking about false. I'm talking about true. Well, whenever you try to figure out, somebody says, oh, I believe in God. Well, who are you talking about? Even Jesus. When they say, well, I believe in Jesus. Well, listen, the Jesus of the Bible is the Jesus that was prophesied about since Genesis chapter 3, who is eternal and pre-existent. He was at creation, in creation. Creation was through him. He was born into the world, but he existed before the world. He lived his life. He was perfectly sinless. He is God. He physically died on a cross. He was buried. He rose again, and he's coming back one day. So somebody says, oh, I believe in Jesus, but all they believe in is this version of Jesus who's just a nice teacher. Listen, we're not talking about the same Jesus. So when you read through passages like this and it tells you who God is, take him for his word, believe this is who he says he is. And so when we say, I believe in God or I believe in Jesus, Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd, I'm the cornerstone. I mean, he is the gate, I'm the door, I'm all. Well, if that's who he says he is, then that's who he is. And so we have a great system here. We read this and we go, oh, this is who God is. And so just because we're using the same words, I believe in God, we may be defining those words differently. And so we go back to, we're looking for the God of the Bible, and we find him in Jesus Christ. That's what I got out of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week in chapter number 11. All right, see you then. Bye.